So first, down at the far end, we have Kaya Donald, and she was a 2018 graduate, and as you saw in the documentary, she received a scholarship through the CCDI program, and she is currently at STLCC and will move on to Missouri S&T shortly. And then we've got Jada Freeman, who I've worked very closely with her as one of my dual enrollment students. She takes advantage of dual credit here and AP classes. And then we've got one of my colleagues who was the CMO Counselor of the Year. So that is And then we've got the Director of Admissions at Eureka College in Eureka, Illinois, Mr. Mackenzie Ingmeyer. And then President of Eureka College, Dr. Jamel Wright. So thank you, panelists. So our first question is for Jada and Kaya. How did Ritenour prepare you, or how is Ritenour preparing you for college?
Being part of the class in 2018, Ritenour has helped me a lot with making sure that all of my ducks are in a row. So as far as applying for schools, as well as going to all of the college and career days that we had, Ritenour was a great help in my entire college process. As far as applying for scholarships as well, in the summertime I was able to kind of create some small essays for what the college process could ask. And so I had those essays prepared so that when I would be a part of the college and career days after school or on days that we didn't have school, I was able to just submit those essays and submit my scholarships and make sure everything was complete.
Good, thank you.
I would say that Ritenour prepared me for college, along with their college program, with the teacher development days where we would come in the morning, and the after-school days where we would fill out the Common App or learn how to look at financial aid packages and fill out our FAFSA and our other financial aid sort of documents. Yes, thank you. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work on any of those documents at home and understand what I was doing at all. So having Ms. Noonan or Ms. Campshorter come in and guide all of us is what really prepared me for college.
Thank you, ladies. So for Ms. Mitchell and Dr. Wright, what are the biggest factors students should consider when deciding what colleges to apply to?
Okay, so for me, since I have the unique opportunity of working with my students, for me it is having our students to understand why they're going to college. Reflecting on what you want to accomplish when you attend college and understanding that once you understand what it is you want to accomplish in college, then you can become more realistic with your goals, your needs, and your priorities. And once you become more realistic with those, then you can really start to select a school that really lines those opportunities to meet those needs and priorities. I would also say considering the overall financial investment of your education. And so a lot of times students like to focus on that sticker price, which is just the tuition. And they don't go in deeper with the overall cost of education, meaning just the tuition, the room and board, the meals, transportation to and from college, cost of living if you're living on a coastal or if you're living in the Midwest, even down south, books, loan fees, all of that, that goes into the overall cost. And as you've seen from the documentary, that decision that you make as a senior can have a huge impact on your future. So it can be the difference between, do you want to be in debt for a few years? Do you want to be in debt for decades? And sometimes you have to figure out what that is now and making those choices so that you can make a financial investment and compare those costs with how much you will probably make once you get out of school making average and whether attending that school is going to be worth your financial investment, because it is an investment in your future. So is attending that school worth it? And finally, I would say the academic quality of the school. So every school has different needs for everybody. So really determining what that school can do for you. So looking at the opportunities on campus, what services they offer, what opportunities they offer that you want to gain from that experience, from the department, from the school, and then comparing graduation rates, retention rates, all those things play a factor into that. But once you know why you want to go to school and what you want to accomplish from that school, everything becomes a little clearer.
So, I'm on. Okay, so first of all, before I respond to the question, I just want to say, wow. I want to congratulate the leadership of Ritenour, Superintendent Kilbride, and all of you all, and Miss Kaya down there on the end, one of the featured students in the video. Please join me in giving, again, a huge round of applause. You won't have to know how amazing it is for you all to produce that. I'm a St. Louis native. I won't say what high school I attended. It was in a different district. But I'm impressed, and I was wowed by that documentary. So congratulations to all of you all for that. Now, I will actually wrap Ms. Mitchell's comments up with an acronym, because a lot of our suggestions and advice is very similar. My acronym is HOPE, H-O-P-E, the word hope. And the H stands for honesty. Choosing a college, as you heard in the documentary, and as many of you all know, is a life-changing process, experience, investment. It is an investment of all types of resources and time on the parts of many. And it is a relationship. And hopefully it's a long-standing relationship that the student has with that institution that he or she chooses. And as you all know, the foundation of any relationship is honesty. So in choosing a college, when you attend, when you visit those colleges, you have to make sure that people are being honest with you and upfront and transparent about all of the expenses, all of the respective costs and debt, and how much will be owed, and what the financial aid package looks like, and what the programs look like. And the rigor actually involved in being able to matriculate to graduation, because ultimately the sacrifices, they can't be for naught. Right? You want those students to graduate. So in order to really do that, you have to make sure that there's a mutually honest relationship there that is being forged. The O stands for both opportunities and outcomes. You want to choose a college that affords every single student the opportunity to expand their funnel of experience and not narrow it. In some instances, and I think it was you, Ms. Kaya, talking about not choosing a college for namesake. And I'm so glad that you're on this panel, because that was one thing that I kind of latched on to. So when we talk about opportunities, sometimes large colleges, yeah, you know them well, we've heard of them all, and they're great colleges and universities, but the opportunities may not be as fruitful for every student. It may only be the loudest students, or the students with the biggest personalities. So the students who are more quiet or have other types of personalities or different types of interests may not necessarily fit within the scope of what that university is able to offer. So you want to make sure that there are a lot of hands-on opportunities. Experiential learning is critical and key. So even as Ritenour talks about and transitions to a competency-based learning model, you want to ensure that once they leave Ritenour High School, having gone through this competency-based model, that they're attending now a college that will help to build on that competency-based model. You want a college that offers the same types of hands-on opportunities to really learn some key skills that will be transferable. And then outcomes. Any college you go to, any college you're looking at for parents and for students, make sure that you look at their outcomes. That's the evidence. That's the proof. I can tell you anything with my mouth. That's words. What you want to know is, if I want to go to med school, how good is this school at actually sending students from this college to medical school? How good are you at sending students from this college to law school because my child is interested, or my young adult is interested in law? You want to see those outcomes right? You want any college that you're going to have that investment in to provide superior outcomes to their students on a consistent basis. The P stands for personalization. Students will change their minds multiple times over the course of their time in college. You want a place that's going to really care about the fact that your student is his or her own individual self, and what those changes as they grow and develop and find themselves and transform really look like is different from one student to the next. So personalization is critically important. Now, every college says that they offer personal attention, but again, you want to see proof of that. You want them to talk about some of the evidence that they have, that personalization is actually something that's at the center of what that college offers and who they are as an institution. And finally, the E stands for environment and educational experience. Students have to understand the type of environment they thrive in the most and the best. What type of environment do you need? Do you need a large city? Can you function in a small town like Eureka? I'm from St. Louis, and I can tell you there's a little bit of a difference between St. Louis and Eureka, Illinois, where the population is about 5,300. It's a little bit, just a little different. But what type of environment, not only the broader environment, but that campus environment? Is it an inclusive environment? Is it one that's as welcoming as clearly Ritenour High School is with its vast diversity of perspective and person? You want to make sure that it's that type of environment where you can thrive as students and parents. You want that for your sons and daughters. And also, is it a safe environment? How safe is that campus? You want to pull what's called the Cleary Report. Every single college and university across this country is required every year to provide an annual security report that's supposed to be very visibly linked on their website, and we're required to upload a Cleary report that talks about all of the safety issues in terms of violent crime in and around a particular mile radius of that campus. You want to look at that. You want to know if it's a safe environment. And then finally, just the educational experience. We want a rigorous experience. You know, in the next couple of decades, it's said that most of the jobs that exist today will no longer exist then, or they will look so dramatically different, we won't recognize them. And that's in large part because of technology. So you want to make sure that the educational experience of any college you choose has a certain skill sets that will be transferable no matter what the careers of today are and those unknown for the future.
Thank you. And thanks for the shout out to our great district. This next question is also for you. So the question is...
I won't be as long-winded on this one.
Okay, so as we saw in the documentary, we learned about early decision and things, early action. Can you tell us a little bit more about those ways of applying and your experience with them?
Sure, so I will tell you all, early decision, which I would consider to be the most rigid, a lot of very selective colleges and universities across the country use an early decision model. So you have some of your high academic achieving students who are able to apply earlier in the process. They have an earlier deadline. The timeline for when they're notified of their acceptance is a lot earlier in the process. But with early decision, I would caution anyone, because once you decide, that's it. That's your choice. It is a binding contract. It's binding. So you don't have that option of kind of looking and choosing. So you had better be sure when you go the early decision route that it is the school of choice for you, that you have gone through my HOPE acronym and come out of that with that one school being the choice. Early action, a lot of colleges and universities use that. That's a little more flexible because it's not binding. So you still have the same kind of notification timelines that are earlier. You still have the same type of application deadlines that are earlier in the fall. However, you are able to you still have some choice within that versus that binding contract from your early decision. And then more colleges fall in the other categories of a more regular admission or general admission type of category. General admission is usually those that are what I would call your, they're looking at admission ongoing on an ongoing process. Now I will tell you this lastly, that you want to really make sure that May 1st deadline, which they call decision day, it's not that you can't decide after that. It's not necessarily that you can't change your mind after that. However, there are some benefits to ensuring that you make a decision by May 1st. And a lot of those benefits is really you starting to forge that relationship I talked about earlier. It's you being able to forge that relationship with that institution a lot sooner over the course of the summer so that you can really get off to a good start and set a really positive and strong tone for the fall semester.
Thank you. And so to add to that, with early decision, a lot of times that deadline is November 1st. And so this next question is for Jada. We are after November 1st. Have you applied? Did you apply early decision? And what criteria went into your decision?
I have applied to many of my colleges, especially Franklin Marshall College, which I did apply to for early decision 1. My deadline is actually, instead of November 1st, November 15th, and all I have to do is finish my CSS profile and finish my in-depth financial aid so that I can get my decision by December 15th. The criteria I looked at for what colleges that I chose are very similar to the HOPE acronym. I first looked at the big pictures, like the price tag, maybe how large the school is, the location, if it had the major I wanted, and if it had passed all of those checkpoints, I would look into the campus's sort of atmosphere, the students that the campus usually took, the average test scores and GPA, what students thought about the campus, good and bad, the teachers, the resources they had available to the students, the acceptance rate, the retention rate, all of these different statistics and opinions coming from different areas across the country to make sure that I felt that I would be a good fit and that I would succeed if I went off into that college.
Thank you. This next question is for Kaya. What were the most helpful things you did in high school that prepared you for the rigor in college? And then next question, or along with that, looking back, what would you have done differently in high school that could have helped you transition easier to the college workload?
As far as the rigor in high school, I feel as if I prepared myself in a great way simply because I took a lot of AP and honors classes. I transferred between 2 high schools. I was first at University City, but I came to Ritenour around my 2nd year and I graduated from here. And the rigor between those 2 schools also helped me achieve the good grades that I have in college now. Because at Ritenour, I was taking AP classes that were extremely difficult. I remember being a junior and a senior, stressing over Mrs. HC's 10-page essay. I didn't know how to feel. But once college came and I had to write like a 5-page essay, I was like, oh, this is nothing. So that helped me out a lot. I was able to adapt easily because it wasn't as challenging, especially at the community college level. I feel as if my experience is a little different because the classwork that I had going into my freshman year wasn't as rigorous as what it was in high school. So taking those AP classes actually helped out a lot. I was able to have the same mind going into freshman year, not being so overwhelmed with what the schoolwork, what the coursework would be like because I took those AP classes. And as far as looking back and what I could have changed that would make my transition easier, I think studying. I did not have to study as a high school student. And so going into college, I didn't know really what studying was. And so I had to put a little more effort into my schoolwork, even if the teacher would be up lecturing and I would take notes and I would go to class every day. I realized I needed to use my book to actually go more in depth on those topics and also create study tools and study groups as well for myself in college. As a high school student, it was more so, I was surrounded by high achievers, so we all were pretty smart and we all were able to just get our work done and do it in a way where we didn't have to study. And so going into college, I wish I would have learned some better study skills in high school because it would have helped me now while taking like chemistry. I was struggling in chemistry in college, but I learned some study tips and I learned how to study and it helped me actually get a good grade in that class, which I was super proud of.
For Mr. Ingmeyer, what are the most important qualities that you look for in a college applicant?
Yeah, I think that depends on the college that you're applying for. Every college out there is different, and your highly competitive colleges and universities will be looking maybe for different things than your public universities that are down the road. But I think in general, a college admissions office is looking for, can this applicant be academically successful at the institution? And each institution that's viewed differently as to what success is. And another thing I think is we look for, are the students taking initiative? We talked earlier about asking questions and really engaging with the environment, with the campus community. Our admissions counselors, and even myself, we take note when someone is asking questions and they are seeking help, and when they are maybe unafraid to ask questions they think might be too little, or as 18-year-olds would say on campus visits, dumb questions. We tell them all the time, there is no dumb question when you're making this huge decision, because it is a huge investment. And then I think the biggest thing is being able to articulate what's your why. You have to know the reasoning for why you want to pursue college and what college you want to pursue. If you don't know the why, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to be successful for a full 4 years and stay there and retain and graduate. But if you know the why, that's the motivation. One of the things our admissions office doesn't ask too often is, what do you want to study? Because what you want to study might change 3, 4, in my case, 5 times in college. Everybody's ideas change. But your why generally stays consistent. And so that's typically what we look for as we're evaluating candidates for admission.
Thank you. So for Ms. Mitchell, how young is too young to start thinking about college and career?
I do not think there is a such thing as too young. Now, I'm not saying, speak to your 2-year-old, like, look here, baby, let's start working on your college essay. I'm not saying that. But I think it is important to create a college and career readiness presence at a very young age. And continue that process and that culture as the student gets older. And I think it's important to, like, for example, hang pictures up of different colleges, even if it's just like the little flags, career options, especially ones that look like our students, so they can have something to reflect and look up to. And just even having those pictures around to even start, so they can start saying, well, what is this? And things like that. And as they get older, having conversations about when they meet people and the roles they play, how do they become who they are? So they kind of start learning what that process is. And it's like, oh, okay, so I have to start going to college to do this. Or if I know I want to make a lot of money because I like a nice lifestyle, I have to do certain things. And so kind of learning those stories of how people got to where they've gotten to. And when you create a presence in a culture, I think we start allowing our students to have those questions and can enhance those conversations and explorations, and we can build on that as they get older. So I think the younger, the better.
So my first semester here, the fall of 2016, Kaya came to one of our after-school college sessions, and her little sister was with her. I think she was, what, 4th grade then? Is that right? So it's never too young. All right, so the next question is for Dr. Wright and Mr. Ingmeyer. What advice do you have for students and families talking to college administrators, like those in the admissions or financial aid offices?
Okay, so just a couple of things I would say. Number one is, to Matt's point earlier, is ask a lot of questions. And it's actually a good idea to have a set of questions for every college. So every college is different, everyone's not an apples to apples comparison. However, people, right? Remember, you're talking to the people who are gonna be there to help work with and cultivate these skills in your young adults and for students in you. So the people, you can ask the same types of questions. Ask lots of questions. Be very patient, I'd say, with yourselves as with your student, and understand that it is a huge investment. So you want to make sure that you do your research and that you really look thoroughly into each and every college that you are going to. So that way, as you're asking questions, you're almost asking, some of them you know, you're saying, so tell me more about this. And force some of those folks in the administrative offices to actually answer some of those questions for you about that institution. So that my number one answer is to go back to being 2 years old and ask why. Everything is why, and everything is another question. That's what you have to do.
The only thing I'd add to that, I agree, ask a ton of questions, have them written down as you come in. The other thing I'd tack on that is be yourself. Talked about imposter syndrome earlier on. I can't tell you as the enrollment officer at Rigor College the amount of times I talk with people and you know they're being fake with you because they're trying to be somebody that they're not. I love it when I get a genuine answer from somebody about why they're pursuing college or why they're interested in Rigor College. It's refreshing. So be yourself, be you, don't be apologetic for who you are. Own it.
Thank you. For Jada, what has surprised you most about the college application process?
The one thing that has surprised me the most about the college application process is how in-depth it can be, especially for the colleges that I'm applying to that require supplemental essays, that ask those why questions, and that want to know the real you and to judge for themselves if you're a good fit for their college. And also how sort of flexible it can be, especially when trying to speak with an admissions officer and asking questions about filling out certain forms or making sure you have the right information and you're sending it to them promptly. They make themselves available to you and they want you to try to succeed. And I wasn't expecting that going into this long and hard process, but it was a very nice surprise.
Thank you. For Ms. Mitchell, what are the most common hurdles Ritenour students have to overcome to reach their college goals?
Getting all the questions. Okay. The most common one I think is, of course, financial affordability, dealing with the gap. How are you going to pay for the gap in financial aid packages? Another common one is letting go of family obligations. I think a lot of our students, as you witnessed on the documentary, are income providers in their family. They may serve as a translator in their families or a child caretaker in their families, and sometimes it's hard to break away from that and do your own path. And then just being open-minded. I think a lot of times students are set on going to a particular college or doing things in a particular way on a particular path. And sometimes there are other ways to get to where you want to be, and just helping them to become more open-minded to the other opportunities or other paths, that there's not just one way to get to where you want to be.
Very good. And one final question for all panelists. What is one piece of advice that you would have or leave with our audience that we have not talked about this evening?
So I've noticed that there are a lot of parents and adults in the crowd. So I think one thing that I will leave you all with, I'm assuming that you all have children that may want to apply to college or look into that college future. One thing that I will leave you all with is to encourage them during this process and also stand by them as they go through it. My mother stood by me the entire time. I had an older sister who also went through college, so having those people to comfort me during those times was great. So as far as FAFSA, getting documents, we had to go downtown a couple of times to get some stuff, and having her with me made it much more stress-free for me. So I say stand by your children as they go through this process.
The one thing that I want to say to the adults in the audience that have young adults going into this process getting ready to go through it is that, yes, most definitely be encouraging, but don't be a forceful hand in this process. I know you may have these dreams of this child going to this great college, but only this specific great college, but that might not be the route for them. And then you have to understand that this is their choice, this is the rest of their life. So be a guiding hand, but not a forceful one.
Mine's going to be real brief. I would say one thing that I don't think we touched on a lot tonight is network, and know the importance of networking. So a lot of the students in the documentary took the time to experience the opportunities that we had on campus. And they got the time to talk to these individuals and learn more about these programs and opportunities. So I would encourage parents, students, build your network early. Build your village early. As Kyla and Jada were saying, it takes a village in this process. So make sure you have your village, make sure you have your network. None of us can do this process alone. So.
Mine will be pretty brief. I think one thing to be aware for parents and students both is it is a buyer's market right now within higher ed. And here's what I mean by that. You as the incoming student or parents having the incoming student, colleges want students. They want to meet enrollment goals, they want to meet enrollment classes, meet specific criteria for the classes. So explore all the options that are out there, because the more you explore, the more you get out and visit campuses and apply, you're going to see opportunities that are there that maybe you didn't know would be there. And you'll be able to see financial aid packages that you didn't know would be where they stand. But the more options you have, the better you will be able to make a decision that will positively impact your future in terms of finances, but also in terms of getting you to where you want to go in the long term. So explore all the options that are out there.
Well, one of mine is going to surprise you. I agree with every single thing that the other panelists have said, but I would say keep showing up for Ritenour, for the school district. Keep supporting the district in every single possible way you can, so they can keep offering these amazing opportunities, these amazing counselors, and these amazing types of very specified, unique programs that I can promise you all will prepare these young people coming out of Ritenour School District in ways that you can't even imagine. So I compel you and ask, as a college president myself, that you all as parents, as community leaders, as thought leaders in education, as board members, that you keep showing up and you keep supporting this district and you keep supporting Superintendent Kilbride's efforts, because they are efforts that will pay off monumentally for the students coming through the doors of Ritenour High School and the district overall.
And thank you one last time to our panelists for speaking tonight, and thank you all for coming. Dr. Kilbride will follow me, so thank you.